Good morning all, and welcome to Softcat's first LinkedIn Live event. I'm Richard Lamacraft, Softcat's Chief Technologist for Microsoft. Today, we're here to discuss Microsoft Copilot. Over the next 45 minutes, we'll give a brief overview of the tools available today, share some of the recent updates, and talk through our experience of trialing Copilot through the early access program, and hopefully provide some advice to those at a similar stage in the Copilot journey. Before we dive into that, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our guests for today, Ali and Steve. Good morning, both. Can you give us a brief introduction to who you are, what you do, and it's a little cheesy, but your favorite Copilot prompt, please? Ali, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Rich. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ali Belinda. I'm a solutions architect here at Softcat. I'm in the team of Microsoft 365, and I look at all the nice shiny things that come out from Microsoft 365 product stack. In terms of my favorite feature of Copilot, well, I can relate to this one quite easily because I've been on annual leave last week and I came back first thing yesterday. And the first thing I asked Copilot was to ask it, what have I missed in the past week? And it gave me a very nice summary of all the things that was happening while I was away, project status updates and team meetings that I've missed, so I can recap, and summary of my emails. So that was quite a useful tool, which would have taken usually half a day to go through otherwise.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Ali. Steve, over to you.
Thanks, Rich. So my name's Steve Crompton, Managing Director of Changing Social. We're a Microsoft partner that specializes in the adoption and change management of Microsoft technologies, operating in the UK and the US primarily. I started my career over 10 years ago as a customer success manager for Yammer, pre-acquisition from Microsoft. And technology adoption of Microsoft technologies has really been my world for over 10 years. And it's something that myself and all of my colleagues at Changing Social are really passionate about as well. In terms of my favorite prompt, I think for me, it's around creating email follow-ups after meetings. I think, I'm in meetings constantly all day, back to backs, and just trying to find the time to send meeting updates is quite challenging. And I've found Copilot to be hugely helpful with that. So I would typically say at the end of each meeting, create a follow-up email summarizing the key points of these meetings, and please outline all of the actions from these meetings. And then just as a little top tip, I like to give Copilot just a little bit of an extra prompt, which is start the email by saying, "Hi all, please see below today's actions."
Excellent, thanks, Steve. And I'll keep an eye out for that. The next email I get from you, no doubt, yeah. Well, before we dive in, I shall give you my favorite prompt. I've only started to use fairly recently, actually. It's in the middle of a Teams meeting. Who has been quiet in this Teams meeting? So you can see who's not been engaging very much. And then, can you provide me some suggestions of questions to bring them into the conversation? Hopefully not a prompt I'll be using this morning, but I've got it in the locker in case I need it. So before we dive into the main part of today, which is a chat with you guys around enablement and how to accelerate a customer's journey with Copilot, wanted to do a little bit of a level set. So we've got a few stats on Copilot. Some that have been produced by Microsoft, some are independent, and my personal favorite is one that I've worked out myself on the back of an envelope, which is time to value. So 2 seconds. I can't click through the slides. Never mind. So the first stat is 108 minutes. Reason 108 minutes is significant is that is the time to value for a user on the UK average office worker salary. So 37.5 hours, £26,000 a year. If they can save 108 minutes based on a Copilot cost of £24.65, they've netted out. Anything after that, Copilot is paid for itself. When you start to accelerate up through the earnings brackets, obviously that number comes down dramatically. So again, to save everyone getting their own envelopes out and doing the maths, worked out is for an office worker that's on £40,000 a year, it's 70 minutes. 60 is 47, £80,000, 35 minutes a month. Tied in with the stats that then we can see I've prompted Copilot on the left-hand side to give me some interesting stats around Copilot. A lot of those are more qualitative rather than quantitative, but we'll run through a couple of those now. So overall, users said they were 29% faster in a series of tasks, searching, writing, summarizing, etc. Users are able to get caught up on any missed meetings 4 times faster. 64% of users said that Copilot helped them spend less time processing email. So again, all things that we kind of called out with our favorite prompts at the top of this call, actually. 85% of users said that Copilots helped them get to a good first draft faster, so overcoming that blank piece of paper phobia that many of us have. 75% of users said it saves me time by finding whatever I need in my files, so a search aid. And the next two are particularly poignant. 77% of users said once they've used Copilot, they didn't want to give it up. So that's a key point for talent acquisition. And 68% of users said that it improved the quality of their work. So what that says to me is if you've got anybody in a customer-facing role or anybody producing customer-facing emails or need, I don't know, coaching in their email tone or something like that, 68% of people said it would help them with that. And although that isn't a time saving, that's a quality improvement. So again, that can have a real impact to the business. 2 secs. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to click. So could we please go to the next slide? So wanted to just do a very quick level set on what 3 Copilots are typically available for the majority of end users. I apologize in advance for the state of this slide. I cannot blame Copilot for this. This is all me. I'm sure if I'd used Copilot and Designer, it'd be significantly nicer, but no, this is all me. So for end users, we've typically got 3 Copilots. Number 1, Copilot with commercial data protection. So that's what was Bing Chat, or Bing Chat for Enterprise specifically. You would use that as a replacement for something like ChatGPT or Bard or Claude or something like that. Why would you use it instead of those things? Well, crucially, your data doesn't train the model. So anything that you feed in to Copilot with commercial data protection remains protected. So it isn't then used to create a model. There's no leakage of your data. In terms of how you interact with it, it's a web-based chatbot. So you can either go to copilot.microsoft.com, or it's going to be included in Windows Copilot for those that are on Windows 11. So you'll see that there's Copilot natively included in there, or you can access it through Teams. If you have pretty much any Microsoft subscription, so Office 365, E1, E3, E5, M365, E3, E5, I think all of the academic plans have it, the frontline worker plans have it. You have this. So one of the key things I would say for today is make sure your users are taking advantage of this. Don't use any of the other non-protected tools because you have something more secure available, but also it starts to build that muscle of using AI for repeatable tasks. I very rarely do things with a search engine anymore, because if you're searching for something, the searching isn't the activity. There tends to be some activity off the back of it. I'm searching for it because I'm producing this document, or I need this information because I'm doing such and such with it. Well, now I'll just feed that whole prompt into Copilot and get it to do the whole thing for me. Obviously, it provides citations, so you know you're not getting any hallucinations in there. I'm sure everybody has seen already, but when you open that up, you get 3 different levels of response: balanced, creative, or precise. Precise is what you want for fact finding. So when I put my prompt for my previous slide of give me some interesting facts about Copilot, I didn't want those to be hallucinated. Creative is completely at the other end of the scale. If it can't find anything, it'll make it up. It's creative. If you want things around ideation, that's a good place to be. And balanced, obviously, is right in the middle. The second is Copilot Studio. That's an evolution of Power Virtual Agent. Essentially, create your own chatbot, grounded in your own data. So we can feed it specific files or specific websites, and users can interact with that using natural language. It can be surfaced through either Teams, you can have a chat channel on Teams, or you can have it natively built into one of your sites as a web app. As well as grounding it in specific data, you can create specific conversation flows. So if a user asks it about one topic, you can tailor the response so that it will take that conversation in a specific direction. I guess a use case for that could be HR departments with masses and masses of policy documents. If their time is spent fielding fairly straightforward queries or signposting, a chatbot could produce a really good return on that. A lot of conversations that we've had around Copilot, where people have wanted Copilot for M365, we ask what the use case is, what problem are we trying to solve with it? Actually, it tends to be a Copilot Studio thing. Oh, we want it to search these documents and users be able to index and query them. Well, actually, that's more of a Studio thing than Copilot for M365. Finally, we've got Copilot for M365, which is grounded in, you've got web data in there as well, but also data that's held on your tenant. So any files that you have access to, anything on SharePoint, your Teams meetings, emails, all of that kind of thing, you can then interact with that data. In terms of where that then outputs, not just outputted into a chat window, the outputs of that will go natively into Microsoft applications. So again, that could be creating a draft of an email. That could be, again, creating a first draft of something in Word. It could be creating a PowerPoint slide that is better than the one you're currently looking at now. It could be creating queries in Excel if you're not that confident of using Excel. That's what we want to spend the majority of today talking about. It's by far of the things here, it's by far the broadest because of all the access to the data it's got, but also the complexity of having multiple different touch points within it, which can be a little overwhelming. So before we start to talk to Ali and Steve, there are a couple of updates, which again will be helpful for this conversation. These came out a couple of weeks ago, so you may have seen them already, but if not, definitely ones to be aware of. Update number 1, restricted SharePoint search. So one of the most common blockers I have seen when talking to customers, at least, is data readiness. We'll go into that in a little more detail with our speakers in a bit, but if your data is overshared, it's a problem regardless, but Copilot is so proactive in the information it serves, it can really shine a light on poor data policies. So you now have the ability, this is only for Copilot users, so this won't help with things like if you wanted it for Viva Topics or whatever, but for licensed Copilot users, or an organization that has licensed Copilot users, sorry, you can restrict access to SharePoint information. So you can do a blanket, block everything that you don't specifically have access to. So you still have access to OneDrive, files that have been shared directly with you, but all of those big sprawly SharePoint sites that come off the back of Teams channels, we could just blanket block those. You can create an exception list of up to 100 permissible SharePoint sites that we know are safe. So if you've got, I don't know, an HR policy site, if we carry on the theme with that, we could have that in the permitted site. But anything else where there might be commercially sensitive information, we don't think the policies have been set up, those can be stopped. Second, the Copilot Success Kit. Microsoft have published that. We will share a link to this in our latest newsletter, which I'm sure many of you are signed up to anyway. Microsoft have put together a success list, a success kit that will help you prove value within the organization. And third, data residency information. So Microsoft have this term content of interactions, which is essentially anytime you send a prompt and have a response, that is now all transparent and searchable. Those interactions could be created through either content search or through Purview. And Microsoft have stated that they contractually guarantee they will store any of the content of your interactions with Copilot in the same country or region as you store your Microsoft 365 content. As I say, there's been certain verticals of customers we spoke to where that's been a really big blocker. So it's good now to have that removed. So on to the chat with our guests. I do have some pre-prepared questions, but equally, anyone that's currently signed in to the LinkedIn Live, if you have questions, pop them in the chat where you can get fed straight through. This absolutely is a session for you, not for us. So if there's anything where you would like to draw on the collective wisdom of our guests today, please drop a note in. So Ali, nice, easy, but incredibly broad question for you to kick off with. So you've been on the Copilot pilot at Softcat for 4 or 5 months now. How has it transformed your daily work processes? What areas has it helped you to improve?
Yeah, it's a quite a broad question, but I guess my experience has been quite gradual so far, but also accelerated in other areas because I'm also running the Copilot workshops that we do to run for our customers actually. So it's been a bit of both. I had to get up to speed very quickly, but also it's a bit of a learning curve, I think, and it's a bit of a personal learning curve in the sense that the way you create your own habits interacting with Copilot is quite individual in terms of the prompts you use, in terms of the creativity aspects of, for example, a PowerPoint presentation. It's quite individual, and the way I see it, it's a productivity tool and an evolution of the existing Office 365 applications. In terms of what we've had so far, going back maybe 30 years, 25 years, and how that's developed further and further in terms of the standard Word, Excel, PowerPoint applications we've had, and the features that always come with the new versions of those applications. I just see the Copilot aspect from a productivity perspective, the next iteration and the next evolution of that. And it's definitely helped me in areas which I mentioned earlier on, in terms of heavy tasks or tedious tasks, in terms of admin heavy. I can definitely do a Copilot now in terms of summarizing my emails that were sent in the past week and prioritizing what's the important ones, or what's the emails that have action points for me to actually have an output. So that's definitely helped me rather than going through individual emails. And for me personally, where I see the main benefit is because I interact with a lot of customers. I do a lot of workshop with customers and a lot of demos in terms of project opportunities and customer workshops. I do a lot of Teams meetings, and in pre-Copilot days, I would have to take notes manually, be it on pen and paper or using Microsoft OneNote. Now I just let Copilot do it for me, and that's been a game changer for me personally, because I do a lot of Teams calls and it's one less thing to worry about. And at the end of those calls, I can just ask Copilot what the action points or what are the team notes. I can bring that into OneNote. And the thing I like about Copilot, specifically around the Office 365 integrations and the applications, it understands context and it can integrate between the different applications very well. So I can go to Word and reference the OneNote file I created based on the Teams meeting and say, can you write me a proposal based on the customer's requirements that we spoke about? And it would do that. Of course, I would have to proofread it. I would have to go through it and make sure it's accurate. But it will be a good starting point for me, and I think that's the main thing. You don't have to start blank sheet every single time. It's a nice little draft, and things like that really help. So for me personally, it's definitely accelerated my productivity in terms of working within the Office 365 applications. I don't have to spend a lot of admin heavy tasks. I think that's the main takeaway for me.
Yeah, there's a couple of things there that you raised which really really resonates with me, at least. There's definitely, when you say it's an evolution of the way that you use the tools, I think that's such a great way to think about it. Rather than a new thing to master, it's an evolution of working with the existing tools. The thing that always springs to my mind is, I'm trying to think of a polite way to put it. Let's say I'm an Excel enthusiast. I'm very much an Excel enthusiast, and it always baffles me when you see somebody spend a long time in Excel manually doing things that you think, well, once you've achieved some level of proficiency with the tool, oh, cool, that's a VLOOKUP, or I'll do that in a pivot table. And it's the same thing with Copilot. You need to invest a bit of time to get some element of proficiency with the tool, and then there's a massive payback for it. I'm sure we'll cover that in more depth with Steve a bit later on. So that's the good. How about the challenges? You share some of yours, I'll share some of mine. What challenges did you face when initially adopting Copilot?
Yeah, I think that's a very good one. Initially, when you have no experience with it, and I was fortunate enough to get the license within our pilot group at Softcat, it is a productivity tool in the sense that it's not going to do your job for you. I think that's a clear message to give out. That where it's helpful is, for example, you mentioned Excel there. I'm not very good with Excel, and creating pivot tables.
That's it, Ali. We're done. I thought we were buds. That's it. We're done.
So I can ask Copilot to create me conditional formatting. What Copilot is good at, it will do the things for you where you can do it manually, but it's not going to create you something from scratch where there's no context involved. You need to know how to prompt it. You need to understand how to work with it. For example, in Word, you need to give it the correct context and reference points to be able to give you content. So that's a good message to give, that it's not an AI model where it can create all these wonderful things for you, from scratch and all this shiny stuff. It's not that. So I had to adopt to that, and I had to treat it as of going back maybe 20 years. You remember Clippy from Word, the assistant it used to have? I thought I need to get that reference in there. I see it as an evolution of that. It is basically an assistant. It's going to allow you to do things a bit more efficiently, a bit more quicker. Maybe if you need to create a bit of a paragraph in Word about a specific product, it's going to help you create a nice little introduction about that product. You won't have to create that from scratch, but you need to help it. That was an idea that I had to get around in my head. And in terms of the challenges, it's, I think, in the very early stages as well. I think that's very important to mention, that this is only level 0, and we're going to see a lot of improvements, a lot of different iterations as we go along. And Microsoft is putting a lot of investment in, as we all know, into this, and it's only going to get better. So we have to treat it as such as well.
I definitely felt the same. So I guess for context with this thing, we're on the early access program, not massively early, by the way. I think we were in early October, so a month before GA. So we don't have too much of a head start. But I guess for those that haven't been able to get access until the 300 seat minimum was reduced in January, I guess it's a bit of a head start. So we had a pilot of 50 licenses to partner early access, and that was a nice size. We rolled it out throughout bits of the organization. Again, I'll ask Steve his opinion on that in a minute, because it's his entire job to be good at this stuff. So potentially some mistakes made there, but we rolled it out in pockets to the organization. We gave a couple of, here's some ideas to go with it, and then off you go. And there was such a broad mix of usage in the estate. I don't know if that will resonate with anybody that's on the call today as well, listening into the call. But we had some users where we metered their interactions. It was like 250, 300 interactions with Copilot a month, which was huge. And then we had some who were selected because they're technology evangelists, not necessarily in a technology role, but they're passionate about emerging tech, who are in single digits. And when we got feedback, it was, well, I've asked it to do this thing and it just doesn't do the thing. And so I think the biggest challenge I had was I was probably one of the lower adopting people, which is shocking, really, considering what my role is. Of it was too many toys all at once, too many things, and I just rushed to straight. I saw the shiny marketing video of you can create PowerPoints from a document. Cool. I'm terrible at creating PowerPoints, as we've all seen. I'm terrible at creating PowerPoints. Let's go and do that, feed it a document. And it just wasn't doing what I wanted. And it's absolutely a user error, but I hadn't invested the time to build up my skills in a modular approach. Again, I've got so many questions for you, Steve, on this. So we'll come to that in a bit. So we can't have somebody with your technical knowledge on this call, Ali, and only talk to you like you're from a perspective of an end user. So a lot of the readiness conversations I've been having with customers seems to be split broadly into two areas: people readiness, we've got Steve, and technical readiness. What do you think, or what have you seen, Ali, are some of the main technical blockers for a wide-scale deployment of Copilot?
Very good question, and a very important one as well. I think you touched up on this earlier on the previous slide. Privacy and data governance is very important. The way I would classify Copilot is in the sense of data. It's a very aggressive interrogator of data.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is it will go and fetch data to areas that you may not already have access, you have access to. So what that comes down to is permissioning in terms of keeping housekeeping in terms of who has access to what, how tight your boundaries are within your tenant in terms of permissioning and data governance. So data classification comes into play here, Microsoft Purview, and making sure that you have the controls and the measures in place that only the intended people have access to the data that they require. So it's important to make sure that before you can go ahead and enable Copilot and give everyone a license. That's absolutely fine, but you might find yourself in trouble if you haven't spent the extra time and effort to just make sure that we have the security controls in place from a data governance perspective, that we're not going to have an issue where I can go ahead and ask Copilot what's Richard's salary, and if I got access to that from HR and I'm going to get a response, and you might not want that to be the case. So it's important to have a bit of housekeeping, making sure that security controls are in place before you roll out to the masses is always an important topic that comes up.
Mm-hmm. I think the update to SharePoint data, the restricted access to SharePoint data update that came a couple of weeks ago, is really helpful in providing a soft takeoff to Copilot, because it means you can use it for things like email and Teams without having that worry about access to inappropriate SharePoint data. But that's still a hole that exists in your organization. If you switch on Delve, you've still got that problem. If you switch on Viva Topics, you've still got that problem. So it definitely should be a temporary sticking plaster approach for users for organizations that decide to take advantage of that update, not a fit and forget. It's just, if you want Copilot for some of the benefits and are prepared to delay the rest of them while you get your data sorted, that's how I would view that.
Absolutely.
Super stuff. Thanks so much, Ali. Steve, Oh, so many questions for you, Steve, but we're gonna have to keep it fairly concise, and hopefully we've got more from the chat too. And equally, Ali, if there's anything that that you want to ask Steve as part of this too, just by all means chime in. So, Steve,
Rich,
what I think of the best way to frame and phrase this.
Okay.
What approaches have you seen work well to increase Copilot adoption? Is there so I'm just thinking there's so many different ways we could cut this. Are there any strategies or approaches that you would recommend for introducing, like at ground level, for introducing Copilot into an organization?
Sure. Yeah. So I think one of the things that we've had to do here at Changing Social is also adapt our approach as well, Rich. So, if we think back to last year, we had a number of our own customers that were on the early access program. So they had to invest, huge sums of money to buy 300 licenses. And then in mid-January, Microsoft changed that so that the minimum requirements effectively went down to one.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've definitely seen different approaches for rolling out enterprise AI across our customers based on the difference of purchasing habits that they've chosen to pursue. So I think what we saw last year, and actually still with some of our customers that have decided to go enterprise wide with Copilot, that there was a really big focus on adoption and change management in terms of thinking about, what is our vision, what's our resistance management plan, who are our stakeholders, how are we going to think about the right and appropriate level of communications and the cascades throughout the business to really get excitement, mitigate any of those resistance points, create that desire and bring stakeholders and people on that journey. We've then also seen, I think, which is becoming more common, which is organizations, particularly in an SMC or a mid-market space, take an approach where they're piloting Copilot or running proof of concepts in different departments with with fewer license requirements. And I think that irrespective of whether or not you're going enterprise wide or if you're going for a pilot rollout, I think you absolutely have to be thinking about who is your key audience outside of IT. You also have to be thinking about what is the success criteria for Copilot. And I think that we saw lots of companies sort of just buy licenses out of fear of missing out and just curiosity. And then when it would come to sort of the end of their pilot phase, they would effectively say, has this been successful? But they didn't know what success looked like right from the very beginning. So I think that, identifying who your target audience is, being really clear about what is the success criteria for this pilot and proof of concept, and also just thinking about how we're going to support our colleagues adopt and embrace enterprise AI and Copilot. We have seen organizations that have, again, bought the licenses, curiosity, sat on them, haven't really deployed them, haven't really known who to deploy these licenses to. And then when they have made the decision of, okay, we're going to deploy these licenses to these set of stakeholders, there hasn't really been that support mechanism for end users. And again, like Ali's experience and like your own experience there, Rich, it can be a little bit frustrating when you're sort of left to experiment on your own and you've got this plethora of AI technologies. And it's, what app do we use when? But now it's like, what Copilot do we use when? And how does it interact with Word and Excel and PowerPoint? I mean, yeah, it's absolutely about thinking, how do we support end users moving forward?
It sounds so obvious to say, we're entering in a X month pilot. What success metrics are we looking for? What's our success criteria? What's the ideal position we want to be in 6 months' time? What behaviors do we want to see in these users? I'll be honest, we didn't do that. And from what I've seen from speaking to many of our customers, they've not done that either. I don't think anybody knew. I think it was so new. I don't think anybody knew what to do. It's a little more mature now. And I think with coaching through it, that can help. But it's, when you say it, it sounds so obvious, but we just didn't do it. We touched on the early access program, which again, I'm sure most people on the call will know, but Microsoft opened up a very limited early access program for some customers. And then the criteria for that kind of carried on for the first 3 months in market, which was 300 seat minimum. You had to buy 300 seats, had to be on an EA. That's gone now. You can buy in any quantity. You can buy on other licensing platforms like CSP. It feels like that has definitely changed the level of conversation. We're not talking about 100K a year commitment, which is for most organizations a C-level conversation to get that commitment, to now actually we just want to try a small handful of licenses. Now that those criteria have been relaxed and more customers are able to self-nominate for much smaller scale pilots, is there any insights that you can share from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So irrespective of whether or not you're going company-wide or if you're starting out on a proof of concept, we have what we call the 3 Ps here at Changing Social. So for us, it all starts with personas, patterns, and prompts. This is because, and Ali mentioned it earlier, right? Copilot is a personal productivity tool. And because Copilot enables personal productivity, the use cases and the benefits for Copilot could effectively be infinite. And it's almost, I used to see this in my days of Yammer 10 years ago, that it can do all or nothing. So there's so many things that this technology can do that it's almost overwhelming for end users and the people within our companies to get their head around. Again, Rich, you said it earlier. So for us, if we can really understand our persona groups, then we can understand what we call their work patterns, which are effectively the activities that the personas do on a daily basis. So for example, an executive assistant may take notes and summarize and book travel, etc. A salesperson within an organization, will have many sales calls to have, and then write the summaries after, follow up on those emails, create proposals, create presentations, or quotes for their customers. Effectively, these are those work patterns within the organization that repeat on a daily basis. So if we can understand our personas, patterns, and then we can create the prompts and help the people that our customers, we can help those people create really effective prompts and get their head around how to create these prompts to enhance their flow of work. And that for us, irrespective of enterprise-wide rollout or if it's a proof of concept, it all starts with those 3 Ps: personas, patterns, and prompts.
Thanks, Steve. I love the 3 Ps. As you know, we've been speaking about this for a while. It's just a really clear framework for demonstrating use cases. There's something else I would love for you to talk to us about, which again, we speak very frequently, but in terms of breaking up into use cases, and I won't steal your thunder by talking about the 4, but if you could spend a bit of time talking about how to break up some of the use cases for Copilot and how you recommend customers take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this all starts from last year when we were working with some of our customers on the early access program, and all the way through to now. To be honest with you, Rich, we are still learning. We're constantly evolving. The product's evolving, and we're learning from our customers and learning from how we use Copilot internally as well. But what we found in the early stages of working with customers was that people were trying to run or fly before they could
love it.
run or fly using Copilot before they could walk or crawl. If we think AI is such a transformative tool, I believe it anyway. I think Copilot enterprise AI is huge. So let's assume that Copilot is the equivalent to being in a Formula One car, for example, right? So jumping in that cockpit without any training, a couple of things are going to happen. You're not going to necessarily be able to start the car. You might stall it coming out the pit lane, or you might not understand how to break into corners and then effectively spin off, and that's going to knock your confidence, right? And so we kind of saw this with Copilot usage as well. We've all seen the incredible Microsoft videos and the power that Copilot has, which is, to create sparkling presentations and summarize things in Excel and all of those types of things, right? And what we found is that as soon as those Copilot licenses were enabled, end users and people within the customer organizations that we work with would immediately just dive into PowerPoint. Did you do that, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely, I did. Yeah, those videos were so shiny. That was exactly what I wanted. I think we could go back and visit the QTRs where I said, yeah, that's going to be my favorite thing. That's what I'm going to use it for. But, yeah,
exactly. And that was, and I think that was the same for many other people as well, right? They were going to, how do I create fantastic content? How do I go and create proposals and statements of works and documents and what have you? But actually, we found that starting off and trying to contextualize how and where the value can be seen with Copilot is actually really important. And we've came up with the 4 key areas for Copilot. So that is to search, to summarize, to ideate, and create. And this helped end users frame how enterprise AI can really benefit them in their day-to-day work. So then we're able to start off to educate these personas on how to search, which are, again, concepts that everyone's quite familiar with. It's an easy transition from this is how I work today to getting into AI. And then how to summarize meetings. Again, a vast amount of information that we have to consume. It's a really good value add. And then we can start to look at how do we ideate with Copilot. And when we're able to do this, we're able to help personas effectively build up their confidence using AI tools to get to a point where they can create great content. But they've got a really good understanding of how prompting works. They've got an understanding of how the AI language models work as well, and how to reference data. And you may have heard Ali earlier say about reference points and getting information quality correct. All of these things take time. But it is about a user understanding and building up the confidence and also the proficiency levels internally.
That really helped me when you first broke it up into those 4 areas. And like all good concepts, when you see it, it sounds obvious, but actually to break them up into specific groups, I now do all my searching through Copilot, whether it's Copilot for web or searching anything that's in our tenant. It's just so much easier to try and find things when you could use natural language. I guess I was quite an early adopter of Summarize. You Summarize for literally everything in email and in Teams. But yeah, to then build on those 2 and create the habit, that's really what I think it is for users, actually creating the habit of going and being AI first with certain criterias. I'm looking at the time. I've got so many more questions for you both, but I'm aware we've only got 2 minutes left. So within those 2 minutes, before we close, Steve, is there any other advice other than what you've provided so far that you would give to anybody at the start of their Copilot journey?
Yep. So 3 things I think for me is, 1 is to prepare your data and your people. We spoke about, or we heard from Ali earlier. So make sure that you have done a level of data readiness. It's not even just about data security. It's about data quality. So make sure that we're preparing our data. I'll then also advise that we engage stakeholders outside of IT quite early and bring them in on this AI journey. To be honest with you, they're probably already exploring technologies outside of Copilot, and you might also see shadow IT in the enterprise. And then what I also have seen with our customers, again on EAP and through now, is that there is a requirement for change management with enterprise AI as well. So if you are thinking about, okay, I need to invest X amount for licenses, I would be looking for a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 ratio of licenses versus change management spend as well.
Interesting. Thanks so much, Steve. And thank you everyone that's attended this event, our first LinkedIn Live event. And of course, thank you to Ali and Steve for being such great guests. As we bring this into land, and again, I couldn't help another aviation Copilot related pun. I think I should be allowed 3 for every call. There's kind of 4 things, they're really similar to yours actually, Steve, 4 things that I wanted people to take away from this. Number one is to get hands-on. If you've got pretty much any Microsoft license, you're going to have access to Copilot with commercial data protection. Start using it. Try and build that habit of not using a search engine and then taking the outputs and copy and pasting. Try being AI first for some activities. Secondly, if you haven't already, check out the Copilot Success Kit. Again, we'll send the link round in the Microsoft newsletter that we send from Softcat this month. But there's some really good free resources for customers that want to attempt to self-serve some adoption and change management. Number 3, security readiness. We've talked at length. Ali provided some really great insight into that. Have a look into what the security posture of your documents is, that things are in the right place, they're aged correctly, people have just enough access to get their work done. If you need support with that, obviously Softcat have some services available in that, many of which we can apply for funding for qualifying customers. So please get in touch with your account manager. And finally, if you would like to talk to Steve's team over at Changing Social of anything to do with adoption and change management, or indeed a Copilot specialist at Softcat, get in touch with your Softcat account manager, and we would love to support you in your journey. Well, that brings us to a close. Thanks very much, everyone, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.